shortly. I was admiring Qāḍī Sahib's matching shawl, mashallah. I didn't do as good job as Qāḍī Sahib, mashallah. It was nice to see Qāḍī Sahib. So yeah, I'm here for a few days, inshallah. Not as long as last time. I'm obviously getting old. Look, my beard's gone grey. I have to have reading glasses now. You know, you try to find reading glasses. You know, the optician says to you, you need to wear reading glasses, and you fight it for a few years, and you can't see things. And you know, somebody comes up to you, says "Assalamu alaikum," and you look the other way, say "Walaikum salam," and he's thinking, "Brother, I'm over here." After a while, you know, we all give up. Yeah, it's part of life. We all move on. We accept life. We're getting old, and the eyesight isn't as good as it used to be. Okay, you start seeing, you know, more dots on the actual letter than is actually there. Your noon turns into a tha, and everything starts to go slowly, deteriorates slowly. C'est la vie, as the French will say. Well, inshallah, the aim is to be able to spend whatever few days we have in your great company, and also at the same time, also in the company of the Quran. We have obviously, whilst we've been here, spend at least Fajr. This time is going to be a little bit different. I'm doing a little bit of a tour. Yeah. So I will be here and I will be elsewhere as well, inshallah. But when I am here, I will, you know, gladly spend the time that we've spent together over the last whatever number of years it's been, alhamdulillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أوحينا إليك كما أوحينا إلى نوح والنبيين من بعد. Indeed, we have revealed to you, Yani Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like the way we revealed to Nuh alayhi salam and to the Anbiya which came after him. This was always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's relationship with the Prophet alayhi salam is a unique one. It's always consoling him, always making him feel that he's worthy to the task that he's been given. The Prophet alayhi salam always questioned himself more than anything else about, you know, am I worthy for this task? Are people not coming towards Islam because of my skills or my oratory skills? And this is a very important point to note for people who, you know, reach into the world of where sometimes, you know, knowledge is a heavy burden. Obviously, it should be a heavy burden which should lower a person, inflate that person. And when it inflates the person, he can feel quite powerful. You know, knowledge is power, as the famous saying goes. And it's very dangerous. But, you know, the Prophet ﷺ was very unique because for what he had been given, for the opportunities he given, the knowledge he had given, the knowledge that he had of not only this world, but the world that is to come. And it's always makes me, you know, I see the remarkable character of the Prophet ﷺ, that even that he knew the difficulties that people will face, he could, you know, still smile. You know, sometimes when you carry the burden of this world and you carry the burden of the hereafter, sometimes when we're in a little bit of gham, when something has befallen us, it's very difficult to get us into a good mood because we're always thinking about that parishani, that difficulty that we're facing. But the Prophet ﷺ said was a unique man in that he could contain that. And you have the complete opposite, like Shaitan, where Shaitan was also very knowledgeable. He was also gifted knowledge. He was gifted these things. But it had the opposite effect on Shaitan. Instead of humbling him and him questioning himself and questioning that, you know, am I really worthy to this task? Do I really understand something? It gave him great pride that, you know, I'm better than him, I'm better than him, I'm better than him, I'm better than him. So knowledge isn't necessarily something in itself that can give a person the straight path. This is why our, you know, ulama always speak of this balance between yani haqiqa and the sharia, meaning that maintain that serenity as well. That don't, you know, and many of us interact with learned people, and sometimes we come away from learned people thinking, that's not what I was expecting from him. You know, I didn't expect that kind of behavior from him. I didn't expect him to engage with me in that way. And it challenges their own iman, so to speak. You know, they start to think, you know, am I on, you know, and it's not a good thing. But, you know, rest assured, unfortunately, it's our shortcomings as learned people, supposedly, or people who think we're learned people, that we can't portray that fine balance that the satanic path, where he couldn't contain this great knowledge that Allah did. And it gave him a reason even to argue against Allah. It made him obstinate. It made him arrogant. And in reality then, that knowledge is not knowledge, but it is actually a form of ignorance. But it's just at that time you don't realize that it's a form of ignorance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, look, you are no different, you know, the tribes of the Jewish tribes in particular, but generally the mushrikun would look down on him. The Arab tribes would look down upon him. You know, they were people of knowledge, winging it as this. People, they always could go back to text and insertions and subtractions from the text. But in reality, they had some text. And they would, his claim doesn't meet up, because they asked, you know, does his claim meet up to the standards of the Anbiya of the past? You know, what do you have knowledge? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would console him. And it's interesting, isn't that 1400 years later, we're reading, and yet for us, it's, you know, we listen to it in Taraweeh, we recite it in our daily recitations. But, you know, inna awhayna ilayka kama awhayna ila. Indeed, we have revealed, and, you know, for those Arab students amongst us will know there is emphasis there in the earlier part of the ayah to console the Prophet ﷺ, because again, if you notice, it's addressed to the Prophet ﷺ, inna awhayna ilayka, not to say upon him, addressing the ayyuhan nas, or addressing Ahli Kitab, that, oh, you know, we have revealed to this man to protect him, to defend him. Instead, it was said, indeed, we have revealed to you. So it's consoling the Prophet ﷺ, so that he don't second guess himself. Ila Nuh wa nabiyina min ba'di, and the Anbiya which came after him. وأوحينا إلى إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط وعيسى وأيوب ويونس وهارون وسليمان. And very rarely do we see ayats of this nature where Anbiya are mentioned in some kind of order of series. But these are great Anbiya, absolutely all the Anbiya are great, but these are ones that we recognize because they came from that part of the world, the Middle Eastern part of the world, which is still preserved. And indeed, we revealed towards Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ismail alayhi salam, Ishaq alayhi salam, Yaqub alayhi salam. So all the key and all the individuals, which also those particular Jewish tribes themselves had recognized. وَالْأَسْبَاطِ وَإِيسَى وَأَيُّوبَ وَيُونُسَ وَهَارُونَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَآتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ زَبُورًا, and we gave to Dawood al-Islam the Zabura, the Psalms, the text. وَرُسُلًا قَدْ قَصَصْنَاهُمْ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَرُسُلًا لَمْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. And they are messengers that we have narrated to them, قَصَصْنَاهُمْ عَلَيْكَ, their stories we have told you. And you've mentioned them in the Quran. And there are others, lam naqsushum alayka, that we've not even mentioned to you. So many people say, you know, they ask the question, they say, isn't it surprising that all the prophets came from the Middle East? You know, that's just a big coincidence, isn't it? That all the prophets that we hear about, all from the Middle East. Where were the prophets from South America? Where were the prophets from North America? Where were the prophets from, Venezuela, from Peru? Where were the prophets from the Caucasus? Where were the prophets from Australia? Why do we hear those names? So Allah's not saying is there many Anbiya that have come. Anbiya have come to all sections. But the difference with the Middle East is that the Middle East is a very ajib place, which is why you see what's going on in the world and how the end of days will come, but we're going to leave that for some other time, inshallah. It's a place which preserves. It's a place which preserves. You know, if you look at most of the kind of archaeological digs which take place, you know, they're always finding some scripture in some urn in a cave somewhere, and you think, mashallah, how many caves are there in that part of the world? There's always some urn that they break open and they find a scroll in there that's 1,000 years old or 2,000 years old or 3,000 years old. So the land itself is one which preserves, as the archaeologists find, but also the humans preserve and their habits. And whereas you see changes happening in other parts of the world. So that shouldn't confuse us to think, I'm a bit skeptical that all the prophets which existed all came from this small place on the planet and we don't hear of any others. That's because unfortunately it hasn't been preserved. We can't say that many tribes that have existed in South America may have had some connection with a historical prophet, with a monotheistic faith. But unfortunately with human nature, changes have come century after century, decade after decade. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke intimately and directly to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. رُسُلًا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ بَعْدَ الرُّسُلِ. And these are messengers who came for two purposes. مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ. They came to give glad tidings. And I know as people who sit here in front of you, we always like to waggle our finger and shake the stick at you. And we always warn you, brother, Jahannam is coming, be careful. Brother, you need to pray salah, otherwise you're doomed. Brother this, brother that. And we don't maybe spend enough time giving glad tidings as well. that mashallah, you pray in salah in the masjid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you 27 times the ajr He would have given if you didn't pray in the masjid. With a shabash, well done, and gives a little happiness to us as well. A little pat on the back. We need it, don't we? Sometimes you need that little bit of you're going that way, keep going. Also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to have this for you and that for you. We in one of the lectures we spoke about earlier, which was, tajri min tahti al-anhar. You hear that in so many different ways throughout the Quran. And in one of the lectures I gave, it's an interesting point as to why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously mention gardens under which river flow. And you need to spend some time thinking about it. What's so good about a garden underneath which river flows? Why is Allah mentioning it time and time again, like it's something really good? And for us, we think, well, I've got a garden in my front garden. Well, in London, you don't have much of a garden, do you? You have like a space for your green bin and that's it. Maybe a plant pot is your garden, right? Obviously, up north, mashallah, we have like acres of land in front of our garden. We have to shout to the children. Children, come on. I have to text them. Yeah, you just stick your head out and your head's already in the front row. You go watch it because the bus is going to take your nose off. So gardens, that's why probably people down south don't really get this tajri. Gardens under which rivers flow. I just have a plant holes in it. That's it. Where's this garden that they speak of? I know we can relate to it better up north because mashallah we have all these masses of land outside our front of the house and behind the house, the side of the house, on top of the house. Allah gives to everything. Just accept. So in the same way here, and I described it in that lecture as well, is that imagine you're in the desert. You're in the middle of the desert. Now you have to try to engage the brain as well. You engage our imagination. And you're in the middle of the desert. Imagine the thirst you're feeling. Right now we're not feeling too bad. We've had batne kya before we came here. Paratha, handi, wherever we eat, mashallah, for our suhoor. So we're all loaded up, alhamdulillah. But later on, when it gets to about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you've done a long day. Imagine the thirsty feeling. Now imagine you're in a desert. There's no shade. There's no plant, no tree for you to crawl under. There's no rock to hide behind. It's up coming down at 40 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Celsius. You're trying not to sweat, and when you are sweating, you're trying to catch it on your tongue in order to satiate the thirst you're feeling. And that's the kind of state you're in, and it's not like for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. This sun is burning down on you for hour after hour after hour. And you think, how can I escape this? You sit outside in the garden or, on your front porch, or when you stick your head out the window, and it gets a little bit inside. Get a cool drink from the fridge, and you're all right. But imagine you look to the north, east, west, south. There's nothing apart from the same thing that you're on, which is burning sand. And that's the other thing. Is the actual ground that you're walking is not giving you any respite either. The heat coming back from there is worse than the heat which is coming from above you. So there's no escape. You're feeling the burn marks on your hands, on your knees, on your chest, on everything. And then suddenly out in front of you, you see a small oasis. Now, we've seen a few of these before because you've had these mirages. And you're thinking, is this another one? But it's not. You make your way to this oasis. And as you make your way to this oasis, imagine the coolness that you sit under the shades of the palm trees. You put your legs out on this nice chair, a couch. A nice cool drink is brought for you. And you hear the sound of water. And you see in front of you gardens. And in these gardens, there are all the fruits that you could desire. And obviously some have got donomy hanging off it because not always like fruit. Yeah, and you're relaxing there. And people are serving you this drink. So it's nice and warm as well. But it's got the shade where you're not feeling the heat directly. And you're sipping this drink. Then you start to really understand what this river gardens underneath which rivers flow means. Because the Quran being revealed to the Arabs, primarily to them, oasis was Jannah. It was Jannah on earth. And the desert was Jahannam on earth. And therefore, if they could escape from this and that, those similitudes, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses, you see, unfortunately, because we don't engage and we live in concrete jungles and we don't see the nature that Allah speaks of, that we can't kind of relate to it. And it seems like such a distant thing, like gardens and living. What does this even mean? And that's why we've got to, whenever we, looking at verses of the Quran and spending some time, is to try to kind of, go underneath the layers and be reflective over it, because that's what's going to change our behaviors. If we've been stood behind Imam Sahib for the last 15, 20 years and our behavior hasn't changed, then there's something wrong, isn't there? There's meaning that maybe there's a lack of meaning that we have of some nature. So they come as glad tidings. That's your glad tidings done, lads. So for the next 5 days, you're going to get some proper warnings. Well, munzirina, and also as warners. So those who are taking the right path, the believers, alhamdulillah, they're giving glad tidings. This is what you got. And those unfortunately who aren't, they are warned. لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ, in order that there not be against Allah, but for the people, any evidence. So if you look at it, if you look at this verse in particular, the reason for sending Anbiya was so that people could not say, oh Allah, you did not send any guidance on the earth. It does not say so that people may be guided. It does not say that Allah sent Mubashirin and Munzirin in order that people may be guided. He said he sent them in order so that people can't have any evidence on Yawm al-Qiyamah against him that, Ya Allah, how are we supposed to work out that you existed? So, take heed on that. It's a very subtle point, but it's a very important point. So there's no one can say, oh Allah, where were you? We didn't hear about you. How are we supposed to know about you? But he will say, hold on, did I or did I not? Or the angels will speak on his behalf. Did or did I not send Anbiya? And did I not preserve the last text? So even though you weren't in the generation of that last Nabi, but did you not have a preserved text? Did I not reserve it up until Yawm al-Qiyamah, whenever it was? And then no one can deny that. Did you not have opportunity or masajids in your locality where the ulama would sit and talk to you? Did you not have those opportunities? So it's to give proof against people. And that's like a warning, isn't it? It's like, I don't really care whether you accept or don't accept, but trust me, you ain't going to make a case to say that we didn't know. Because the proof is here. Right? So you cannot make, and it's quite frightening actually. It's quite frightening that Allah is, in a way, threatening. And it's a threat that this is going to be used as proof against you. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا, and indeed Allah is mighty and wise. لكن الله يشهد بما أنزل إليك أنزله بعلمه والملائكة يشهدون. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bears witness regarding that which He reveals to you, as in the Prophet alayhi salam, أنزله بعلمه, He reveals it based on His knowledge. وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يشهدون, and the angels bear witness. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا, and sufficient is Allah as also as a witness. And whenever we use the word witnesses, think of as your daily practice in the legality of things. It's always legal talk. Where is a witness required? A witness is required in court. Why is a witness required in court? Because a crime has been done. A crime has been committed. What is the purpose of the witness? To speak against you usually or for you. So this language that we use, we have to try to bring it into every daily language. That why is a witness called? What purpose is a witness called? A witness is called to give witness for or against somebody. So somebody's on trial. Who's on trial? We've already seen the word hujjah, which is evidence, which is another thing which takes place in a court case. So this is all about which court we're talking about, the court of Allah. So he's constantly reminding us that, look, this is, just playing, having a bit of a laugh. You're not just getting through life here. These evidences are being gathered, witnesses are being taken together, and this will be brought to task. Indeed, those who disbelieve and they stop and they halt people from the path of Allah, then indeed they have deviated a very far deviation. And that's another thing as well, that when people say, how many times have you been in a situation where a crime is committed and it's solved as the crime is being committed? Never. How long does it take? I'm sure many of us have had, involvements with the law and, a theft or assault or something. And it takes weeks, months, sometimes years before the actual case is settled. It's a long time. Why? Evidence is being gathered, witness statements, whatever. So in the same way here, Allah SWT is saying it's not that it's a time issue. Allah SWT could resolve everything, Sari wal Hisab. You can resolve everything almost immediately. But that we have to go through this thing called life. But then nothing will escape His court. Nothing will be gone, and everything, all the evidences are being gathered. You're not leaving. Evidence is not being gathered by somebody who is forgetful. Evidence is not being gathered by somebody who is absent-minded. Evidence is not going to be in some cloud which is going to disappear because the servers went down. Evidence is being gathered in such a way that it will not disappear. It will stay forever. And we know that now as well. Don't we? Those of us who are a little bit IT orientated will say, oh, there's always ways to, pull back deleted stuff. So always be careful. But time gone by, if a piece of paper was destroyed, we would think that's it, the evidence is gone. But now we can understand that, with computers and clouds and whatever, that there's always a way of pulling that back from somebody's server. You know, even when your server goes down and your emails disappear, you get in touch with your, you know, service provider, and they'll say to you, you know, we can pull that off from you, the server that we backdate on or whatever. Indeed, as for those who disbelieve and they oppress, then it will not be for Allah that He will forgive them, nor will He guide them towards the path. Except a path towards Jahannam, in which they will stay in there for eternity. Again, we struggle with, you know, issues which come into our lives, which we might have to live with for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years, and we struggle with it. And, you know, we were talking in one of the early lectures as well about people who struggle with life. There was a brother that I met, and he was saying that this other chap, his first wife had died with cancer, and he really struggled to deal with that. He was a relatively young man, I think he was in his 30s. And then his second wife was, you know, quite problematic, as he phrased it, and she left him, and they had 2 kids together, and she was now poisoning the kids against him. And he really missed his kids. He was all right, you know, his wife moves on, that's fine, but he really missed his kids, and the way his kids changed with him, he really struggled with that. And he's not coming out of his house. And he's, you know, he's saying, you know, what's the point of this life? I can't live a life like this. I'm only in my 30s, you know. My kids don't want to look at me. They're being disrespectful to me. You know, I've got no, you know, I've lost 2 wives now, you know, and he's right down in the dumps, and he's having the wrong kind of thoughts. He's saying the wrong kind of things. And it's another area that, you know, even with our community as well, this kind of mental health and depression, and people thinking that, oh, my life's not working out the way I thought it would work out, the way I expected it to work out. Because again, this is based on expectations. We have these expectations when you're young. You're going to have a wife, and then you're going to have kids, and then you're going to have a house, and you might have a garden, and, you know, all these things you will have. And when that doesn't work out, in life, we get upset. We say, okay, well, how come I don't have a wife? That's what I'm supposed to have. It's a failure. I failed in life, because if I don't have a wife, I fail. If I don't have children, I failed. But Allah SWT doesn't mention, like He mentions always, and the Prophet has always mentioned, is your success and failure is your relationship with Allah. Whether you have 15 wives, obviously for that time, before we get to carried away that packet of fatwa, you have 15 wives. Whether you have 15 wives, whether you have 300 children, or whether you've never had a wife and never had a child. Your relationship with Allah, whether a person has been raised as an orphan or has a loving parents, your relationship is with Allah. So irrespective of how life turns out, and that's why we have to park our expectations. We should have these, you know, Bollywood expectations that this is how my life's going to turn out. I'm actually going to have a front garden. وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرًا. And if some of you are going to come to me afterwards and say, you know, this is my house. Not all those are millionaires. ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرًا. That is it on Allah easy. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ قَدْ جَاءَكُمُ الرَّسُولُ بِالْحَقِّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ فَآمِنُوا خَيْرًا لَكُمْ. Although all mankind, this is not addressed to the Ahli Kitab, this is not addressed to the believers, all mankind, all people, all humans. Indeed has come to you the messenger, yani sallallahu alaihi wasallam, bil-haqq, from whom? Min rabbikum, from your Rabb. Fa'aminu, so believe, khayran lakum. It will be better for you. Again, it's addressed to the people. This is not that it will benefit Allah. This is not that it will benefit the Prophet ﷺ, even though we know from that first verse that the Prophet ﷺ took things personally. Believe he took it personally. Not that it was something in them, and Allah throughout the Quran, you see in many, many places consoles him. But this is not upon you. I know this makes you upset. Yeah? Yeah, you are not a compeller. You cannot compel them to believe. Yeah, even when he saw his uncle passing and it upset him, you cannot compel anyone. This is a ni'mah that I give. وَإِن تَكْفُرُوا فَإِنَّ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And if they disbelieve, then don't worry. Allah has the dominion and the ownership of everything within the heaven and earth. So even them themselves, Allah has ownership of. So they can't deny something that some being that has created them. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. And indeed, Allah is knowledgeable and wise. Ya Ahl al-Kitab. And then he turns to the Ahl al-Kitab. لَا تَغْلُوا في دينكم ولا تقولوا على الله إلا الحق. Don't exaggerate, don't go to extremities, don't surpass the limits in your religion and say against Allah except the truth. And you know, we get a little bit emotional sometimes, and because of the love we have for the Prophet ﷺ, we're moving beyond prophethood towards ubudiyya. Yani we give him traits and qualities which only belong to Allah. And it's not out of hate for the Prophet ﷺ, it's actually out of love for the Prophet ﷺ. We exaggerate because usually it is out of the love for somebody or somebody that we exaggerate. So there's a good intention behind it. There's not a bad intention behind it. And that's the downfall of a bid'ah. A bid'ah when it's not a sin in the sense that it is a bad act. A bid'ah is usually a good act. Nobody says, oh, let's drink, let's drink alcohol after salah or something. It's a good thing. Everybody says, astaghfirullah, brother, what you say? Well, let's do X towards the Prophet 155 times in this particular way. You think that sounds like a good thing. We're saying good things about the Prophet. We're not saying bad things about him. What's wrong with these people? Why are they stopping us doing good things? So exaggeration, the deen is very clinical and very specific, and it should be followed in that way. You cannot add to it. By adding to it, you're saying there's a deficiency in it. And I know better than Allah. How can anyone say that? So that's why exaggeration, and the exaggeration first started in al-Masih Isa ibn Maryam Rasulullah wa kalimah. It started with Isa والسلام, where it was felt that we would be disrespecting Jesus, or we would be disrespecting Isa if we just call him a messenger. Yeah, so he's going to be better than other messengers. So what can we do? Let's call him a God. But we have a problem. How can he be a God if God is on his throne in the heavens, as the Christians say? Okay, we can have a workaround. What's the workaround? How about there's like a shared godship? How can it be a shared godship? Well, what about the Holy Spirit? Is he God? That's an interesting point. Okay, how do we include him as well? Okay, how about a Trinity? That's interesting. What does that mean? Well, how about they're all God, but they're not all God? I like that. We could go with this. Will the people accept? Of course, they will kill him if they don't. So this concept, of Godship being applied to humans, and sometimes we, because I always like to apply ayats to us, not just kind of historical context, because we, within us as well, we will exaggerate the Prophet that he has knowledge of everything, that he's ever present, that he's aware of all things, nothing happens in the world without his permission, and things of this nature. This is pushing the Prophet ﷺ beyond his station. And the Prophet ﷺ is not upset of being Rasul or an Abd. He himself used to call himself an Abdullah. But he does not see it as a degrading statement to be called an Abdullah. So, Inna Masih Isa ibn Maryam Rasulullah wa kalimatuhu alqaha ila Maryam wa ruhum min. That he was cast towards Maryam alayhi salatu, his mother, and a ruh from him. فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرُسُلِهِ. So all the messengers. وَلَا تَقُولُوا ثَلَاثًا. Don't say the Trinity. And this, so we know, for example, the Quran came for many reasons. One of the things it came was also to rectify the positions of the previous religions, of Judaism in particular and Christianity, where they'd made errors, ascribing incorrect beliefs to say Sulaiman alayhi salam, with regards to the Jewish, with magic and black magic and things like that, and other things. And they came to correct that. The Quran came to rectify them. No, Sulaiman alayhi salam did not perform magic. This is wrong. So that this slander would not last. But notice the time the Quran was revealed and the time the slander started amongst the Ahl Kitab. We're talking about centuries in between. Centuries in between. Like similarly, the disrespect shown towards Yusuf alayhi salam with regards to his situation with Zulaykha. Again, the statements made by the religions which came before were very derogatory towards Yusuf alayhi salam. But again, nothing was said. Allah only defended him when the Quran was revealed. Then he was defended. Then we found out the truth about him. Do not say 3. Intahu khayran lakum. If you desist from this, then this would be better for you. Innamallahu ilahun wahid. That your God, Allah, is only one. And we know logically the Trinity just does not work. If Jesus was getting crucified, who was he calling out to? And when Jesus died for that moment, was God dead as well? And if he was dead, how did the earth carry on going? It's just flawed logically. Forget theologically. Even theologically, people cannot make you understand the Trinity. But once you buy into dogma, once you buy into something, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you see throughout the Quran always calls to reason. Look at the earth. He said, look at your body, look at things around you. Don't just jump and say believe because I'm telling you to believe. Think about it. How did all these things come about? أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. Look at these things. Think about it. The religion of Islam is one to go into with both eyes open and brain engaged. Whereas in other faiths, it was a kind of beaten into them that, look, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Just accept the Trinity. And unfortunately, because many people in the Western world's only engagement with religion is Christianity, and they see the flaws within it, they just think all religions are like that. But it's our responsibility to explain how Islam differs. إنما الله إله واحد سبحانه أن يكون له ولد. Glory be to him that there be for him a child. You know, child is something where a person is a dependent. Most of the time when we have children, why do we have children? Of course, because it brings us pleasure, excitement. We see them running around. You know, they bring us happiness. You know, we're all, you know, those of us who are fathers here will know what does a child bring to them. And also, you know, a little bit selfish. We think, Buddha, you know, when I'm wearing reading glasses, which I've actually not put on yet, just to demonstrate to you that I can survive with them. Yeah. You know, when we're going to wear our reading glasses and we're going to have our walking stick, who's going to carry me to the masjid? Yeah, who's going to, you know, who's going to look after me? Probably, you know, Allah make it easy, might kick us down the street before that happens. But, you know, we have good, high expectations from our children. No, he'll look after me in my old age. He'll massage my feet and whatever and all the rest of it. He's just thinking, I'm just wearing inheritance. Yeah. Once the inheritance comes, goodbye, daddy. I've already been checking the nearest old people's home, and there's quite a few in the area. Some get 5 stars on Trust Advisor. Yeah, that's what I'm shipping in. What are you looking at there? So nothing, Dad. I'm just seeing how I can do your khidmah on this website. Yeah, you know, we have expectations. The children have expectations, right? Dad, don't you want to put the all your estate into a trust so that, you know, the taxman doesn't take it from those who inherit? Who's going to inherit? Oh, you know, like me, people like me. You know, giving good ideas like that. So we, you know, humans need children for these various reasons that I just explained. So why would Allah need a child? What's the logical reason that Allah, a God, would want a child for? It makes no sense. It's illogical. Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. He has everything. He owns everybody. He owns everything. Why would he specifically need to ascribe a child to him? And if he ascribed a child to him, why, you know, again, taking this reasoning, why would not be a God? Why would he be a human? You know, if there's 2 donkeys, then a donkey is born. Right? If there's 2 lions, you know, I'm not going to do the birds and the bees talk right now for a good time, but you get the idea. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وكفى بالله وكيلا. Sufficient is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a wakil. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.